Welcome back to the show. I am Sam Sachs, filling in for Thom Hartmann on this Thursday. So there is a growing force within the electorate that needs to be reckoned with. It just so happens to be a force that also stands to lose the most facing the Trump administration. And I'm talking about unmarried women. And for more on that, I want to welcome to the show. Actually, let me bring her in here. For more on that, I want to welcome to the show Page Gardner. Page is the founder and president at the Voter Participation Center. That's voterparticipation.org. And you can follow Page on Twitter at Page Gardner DC. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So your organization, the Voter Participation Center, has a new report out about the rise of single women as a political force. And in trying to explain why it's important to distinguish between married women and single women in the electorate, you define what's called a marriage gap that's both economic and political. You want to break that down a little more for us?
That's correct. There's a marriage gap in the way unmarried women and married women register and vote, with unmarried women less likely to register and less likely to vote. However, they are much more progressive in terms of the way they vote, supporting Democratic candidates much more often than married women who vote more Republican.
And your data shows that, for the first time heading into this year, unmarried women now hold, there are more unmarried women among the female eligible voting age group than there are married women. And yet of the people who are actually registered to vote, it's still more married women than unmarried women.
That's correct. Married women are, more likely to vote. Unmarried women, as I said, are less likely to vote. However, unmarried women are now the majority of women in this country. They're the majority of the voting eligible population. They have a bigger presence in the labor force. They have a bigger, footprint politically now, and that's growing year by year. So they are a political force to be reckoned with. They're growing at a much faster rate than married women. So this is a group of people that need to be listened to and paid attention to by public officials, and they have the most to lose with the Trump administration and the Trump administration's policy, be it health care, be it the budget, or be it the new tax policies that they're presenting and proposing.
So how do we go about closing this marriage gap that you've defined it as? How do we get more of those women registered to vote, and also fill some of those holes? There are pay gaps that unmarried women have compared to married women. How do we find more equality within those two female subgroups?
First of all, unmarried women need to register and vote, and that's the work of the Voter Participation Center. And we have been successful in getting more and more unmarried women registering and voting, and we are closing the gap. And they are closing the gap, particularly as they grow, but as more and more programs and more organizations recognize the importance of this group of women. And in terms of the public policies, there are many that would help unmarried women, but they would help all women, and they would help all families, like a rise in the minimum wage, paid family leave, paid sick days, and things like that, that recognize the different family structure that we have in this country today. The public policies we have now don't recognize America in the 21st century.
I think I know this was a demographic, women in general, that Hillary Clinton cleaned up in 2016. She overwhelmingly won among both married women and single women, even higher margins among single women. As you noted, they tend to be more progressive. But if you look into the numbers a little more, despite losing significantly, Donald Trump did outperform Mitt Romney when it came to unmarried voters. And considering that this was such a close election, those small amounts that Trump was able to improve over Mitt Romney when it came to unmarried voters made a difference in this election. Do you think that Democrats are doing enough, in the recent years at least, do you think they're doing enough to appeal to this emerging electorate of unmarried women?
That's a good question. And one of the issues that was present in the 2016 election, which we saw among unmarried women, is what we called then an enthusiasm gap. And we saw that both in terms of their turnout and in terms of their support for, the Secretary Clinton. So what candidates need to do, and what we saw, is speak to their lives. Their lives are stretched and stressed. 1 in 4 unmarried women is a single mom, and 77% of them are in the labor force. So if there are candidates who understand their lives and talk to how hard it is for them to really make it in this country today and support their families, I think that's a winning formula.
Is it also that maybe unmarried women, given that they're not, as traditional in their politics as a lot of married women are, that they're maybe more progressively inclined on economic issues like pushing for single-payer health care and not so much focused on identity issues? Because as you said earlier, there are a lot of economic issues that help all women. Here we are having a debate about Trump wanting to strip contraceptive care from various employee health insurance plans and things like that. If we had single-payer health care, that wouldn't even be an issue.
Correct. These women identify as working women, and as do many married women, but their primary focus is on really, in some ways, being able to make it in this country and support themselves and their family and perhaps their aging parents. So they are really, really focused on healthcare costs, on how much money they make in the workforce. I mean, there are so many women that we ask, particularly unmarried women, could you afford a $500 increase in a year? And they say no. I mean, $500, think about that.
Yeah.
And it's predominantly unmarried women. So they can't afford increases in their health care premiums. They can't afford literally what this administration is proposing.
So what do you think, what effect do you think this 4 years, maybe 2 years, maybe he's only around 1 year, what effect will a Trump administration 1, 2, 4 years have on this electorate moving to 2018, moving to 2020?
Well, what we're seeing now, both in terms of our research and what we're all seeing publicly, is there is an energy around making sure that the policies that they are proposing do not come to pass, and that these group of elected officials are held accountable to what they're doing and what they're proposing. And that's true not only on the federal level, I will say, in terms of members of Congress and the Senate, but it's also happening on the state level in terms of governors and state legislators. So this is going to be a very, very interesting midterm. We'll see, I think, more and more people register, unmarried women particularly. I think we'll see a drop-off, quote-unquote, that happens in the midterm election. I think the patterns of drop-off will be different. So I think, I think we're going to see a real change in the way people participate.
Yeah, and the energy has already started, Paige. It was one day after Trump elected that we had the Million Women March in D.C. I was down there. I wasn't checking people's ring fingers or asking them their marital status, but I'm sure there were lots of unmarried women getting active, getting involved out there. Page Gardner, founder and president at the Voter Participation Center. Check out the website, voterparticipation.org, and check out their new report. Thanks, Paige.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.